Hello everyone, I'm Kathi Powers, Superintendent with the Twinsburg City School District. Welcome to Twinsburg Schools Today. I hope that you have been receiving lots of information from us with regard to our Tiger Legacy Project. For those of you who are not familiar with our Tiger Legacy Project, we're going to be talking about that during today's show, and I have two very special guests that I'd like to introduce to you. First of all, our business manager, Mr. Chad Welker.
Hello, thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. And a new friend, but not really a new friend, right, is Mr. Rob Blatchford from Lesco Architecture. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So I think our residents would be a little curious about your company and how you've been working alongside us, especially through Chad's office, of our business office, to try to get our Tiger Legacy Project up and running and really to engage our community in understanding the needs of our facilities.
Right. Our firm, Lesco Architecture, all we do is schools. We design schools, PK through 12, public schools, and any kind of related facility that you would want to do. We've done about 600 building assessments across the state of Ohio. We actually helped the School Facilities Commission organize and set up their the way they do assessments. So we did the first assessment actually for the state in East Cleveland. So we've gone around to all your buildings. Initially we did the first assessment and went through all the buildings. We classified all of the needs in terms of low priority, medium priority, and high priority. And then we actually came back and updated that survey a few years later, which is what we're using now to determine what shape the buildings are in.
So before we even talked about a legacy project, and initially it was the conceptual legacy project, and now it's been changed to the Tiger Legacy Project. Even before that had any thoughts, we knew that we had to first take a look at all of our facilities and understand what's really working well for our school family and things that really aren't working so well.
Right. Initially, we helped Chad develop a 5-year maintenance program. That was the original intent, to see how he would spend his PI dollars over the next 5 years, and that's why we identified the different priorities. That then transitioned into building project as we looked at how the facilities, what shape the facilities were in.
So you identified the fact that potentially we had greater needs than just what our PI fund could support in just upkeep. And I often think about this as a person who's a homeowner, and maybe they've purchased a home that isn't brand new, and so they have somebody come in and sort of give them ideas as to what needs to be renovated, what can stay the same, what maybe they need something in the back of the house for maybe another bedroom or something.
Right.
So in a smaller sense, a home project is similar to that, but now we're talking about all of the properties of the Board of Education.
Right, and when we do an assessment, we look at 26 different categories: electrical, mechanical, roofing, really the technology, the furniture, finishes. We really go through the whole building. But the other thing that we do, which is different, we look at the building from an educational standpoint to see if it's able to be used to its greatest potential in terms of educationally.
So you've been doing this for many years. Have you seen a lot of changes in what school districts look for today than maybe what they have done even 5 and 10 years ago?
Oh, for sure. The main thing is, as schools move into 21st century learning, which is project-based learning, we are designing more spaces that have to be flexible and adaptable. The furniture is moving. Even with the traditional classroom, we're designing spaces, common spaces, that you can pull out the students into and use for a variety of activities. Another example is we're not usually designing a media center anymore. It becomes part of the common space. So these spaces are used for different purposes educationally.
A different approach.
Right.
So when we think about schools of today and you think about Dodge Intermediate School, obviously the building itself has a lot of need attached to it. Yeah. I always say the best part of Dodge happens to be the students and the staff. They make the building, right? But in order for them to be supported in the ways they need to be teaching today and learning today as students. Lots of things need to be considered.
Right.
So when you're thinking through a building project, and you've mentioned these 26 points, can you maybe expound a little bit more on what that looks like?
Typically in these older buildings, the heating, ventilation systems are old, and one of the things we look at now is the quality of air. So in our new buildings, we're turning over the air, bringing in fresh air so much every hour. And the age of the equipment, typically the roofs, as another example, are past their warranty period, 20, 30 years old, and they've been patched together for years and years. Chad's people have been doing a good job, but at some point it reaches its useful lifespan. So we look at the furniture. As I said, the furniture for project-based learning is very flexible, and the old furniture, you're sitting at a desk, 25 students, in a class, 5 by 5 rows, as opposed to groupings of different. So the furniture, we look at finishes, floor finishes. A lot of these old buildings have terrazzo, which will stand when the building is demolished. They're really good, but they're very expensive, and so we look at replacing that with different finishes. Really all the building systems. Electrically, there's not enough electrical service to accommodate the technology, the new technology that's coming. So we really just march down all of the categories.
Yeah. I know in Dodge, Chad and I were at the building earlier today, and we were in one of the classrooms, and it just feels so tight. There were only 20, maybe 22 desks in that classroom.
Yeah.
Not a lot of space to move for students to congregate together, work in small groups, and so I think the average size is less than 600 square feet at Dodge. What's current right now if you were building a school?
Typically a classroom for 25 students is about 900 square feet. We've sometimes gone down to 810, but that's the smallest we would ever do. So 600, 650 is very small, and really with today's curriculums, it's very difficult to teach in that size of a room.
Absolutely. Even just all the electrical. We were talking with some PTA moms who were at the building today, and they were putting together a room for the staff, and we were talking through that. The challenge is with just even having enough electrical outlets so that teachers can plug in their laptops to charge while they're doing work away from their students. It's all one challenge after the next at that school.
Right.
So, Chad, earlier today when we were at the building, I know our maintenance crews have done a great job. When you're maintaining the property, it's all hands on deck, often 24/7, right?
Right.
But you know probably closest than anybody some of the challenges with just the heating and air conditioning at that building. Can you offer some thoughts with regard to that?
Sure. So our heating and cooling system just a year ago was actually still a dial-up system. We had to have a special computer just to run our control system. Our classrooms are controlled through univents. Those are quite a challenge, and with a small classroom, we actually have to have kids right on top of the univent, which has quite a bit of either cold or hot air blowing out of it, depending on the season. The boiler room we took a tour of again here today, and like our air handlers are pretty original to the building. Same with the boilers, and you even saw the cooling tower that's leaking right now. It's at the end of its useful life, and we're trying to figure out what we do next with that because it's damaging our roof really bad and just not efficient. So a number of different challenges that we're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes to make the classrooms as nice as we can. And our maintenance staff does a tremendous job doing that. But it's certainly very costly and inefficient the way we're operating Dodge.
So a lot of what you're talking about happens to be on the roof, behind the wall.
Absolutely.
And aren't the things you necessarily think about when you walk inside of a school.
Right.
And so that in itself is a challenge, I would think.
Right. When we did the facilities assessment, we identified about $29 million worth of high and middle priority items that needed to be replaced, and that goes everywhere from the 26-point inspection that Rob is referring to, in addition to addressing the classroom size. And so $29 million, it's a lot to overcome, and our maintenance staff does a tremendous job of making the front end operation operate as well as it can.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we have to remember that building was actually refurbished. It used to be the district's junior high school.
Right.
So the history for residents here who haven't been in Twinsburg maybe for very long is that Dodge was Dodge Junior High, and the high school was at R.B. Chamberlain.
Right.
And then the new high school was built in the late 90s, and everything shifted, and then that building was repurposed for the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade bands. So, I think the district has invested well in the fact that it was able to repurpose that building. And for many years, it seemed to have worked, but, even this is my 11th year here, and I know since the day I walked on campus here at Twinsburg, I've heard about Dodge and about the challenges that the staff and the students face every day, because it's just a building that, when it was built in a time when maybe energy conservation wasn't the most important thing that we talked about, and maybe we didn't talk about learning spaces the way we do today. So moving into what's next here in our school community is actually to upgrade it so that our kids have what they need to be able to have many opportunities and grow in a new kind of environment.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the $29 million. Is that the renovation cost?
That's so that there's a maintain cost, which is the high and middle priority items, and that's set to $29 million. If we go all the way to renovate, it's around $34 million.
And then, Rob, can you explain the 2/3 rule? Because you've mentioned that a couple times.
Right. Typically, when we assess a building, if the renovation cost is more than 2/3 the cost of building a new building, we recommend you do the new building and tear down the old building.
So we're there at this point.
We're there in terms of Dodge. Yeah.
And when we started this project back in 2016-17, when this thing first started to bubble up as the Conceptual Legacy Project, and it was a much bigger look at all of the renovations that across the district. We landed on Dodge as the one that we want to focus at this point. And Chad, can you just give the residents here a reason why it's just Dodge that we're talking about and not the $100 million project that we formerly had sort of embraced?
Yeah, so we want to make sure we keep the project focused on what's needed. When you look at the facilities assessment, and that's one of the reasons why we hired Lesco Associates to look at our facilities. The other buildings don't have as many high and middle priority items. They don't exceed that 2/3 rule. Dodge, I think off the top of my head, is nearly 60% of the costs that were identified in the high and middle priority items, and we have 4 other buildings. When we take a look at our maintenance staff, and I remember my predecessor telling me you're going to spend a lot of time at Dodge when starting 8 years ago. Our maintenance staff probably spends 75% of our time at Dodge because just keeping the building maintained and running. So those are some of the reasons why we wanted to focus on Dodge, because of it meeting that 2/3 rule and making sure that it's affordable for our community.
Some of the thinking might be, well, let's just keep things the way they are. Dodge has been good enough for so many years. You're still having wonderful students in that building, great staff to support them. So why can't we just keep going the way that we're going? Why this building project, and why right now?
So I think a lot of it has to do with the educational environment that you can create. Also, when you're talking about the 2/3 rule, that's probably more at a minimum of what's needed. And we try to have all the drawings we possibly can, but just like in your house, when you knock down a wall, you realize that something was unexpected, right?
Right.
And so I think number one, the mechanical systems, getting them to be more efficient, and today's systems, as Rob can attest to, are a lot more efficient than what they were when Dodge was first built. So that, in addition to the educational environment and trying to combat the 550 square foot classrooms that really cause an issue.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and I think there's a cost of doing nothing. And even since 2018 and then 2020, we hit the pandemic. You've mentioned, Rob, in our meetings that the cost of doing business has just skyrocketed. Can you share a little bit about what does that mean?
Really, the last couple of years, the cost of building materials has gone up almost 25%. A lot of issues have caused that, obviously, the pandemic, and being able to secure materials. There's less of the materials around on the shelves, as people have seen when they go to the store. So that's really put a damper on a lot of new construction over the last couple years. But and we don't see an end to it yet. The costs keep rising in terms of material. Things like steel have really gone up. Anything with steel in it costs a lot more at this point. People don't realize when you're doing an HVAC system, air conditioning and heating, that the ducts that you use are steel. And windows, when we make windows, we're using steel many times. So all of these materials have gone up in price dramatically, actually.
Yeah, I saw something that you had written for one of our slides for the community meeting with the windows went up 56% in the last few years.
Yes.
Do you think prices are going to come down or stabilize at some point?
I think I've heard from different construction people that it's starting to stabilize a little bit, some of the costs, but there's still issues in terms of getting materials right now. And the other issue is that because the cost is changing almost on a weekly basis, contractors are fearful to give you a price and hold it for 30, 60 days. So that's created a problem in terms of bidding projects, school projects.
Yeah, we even see that in our summer projects that we're working on now, that challenge.
So I guess the time is now to do something, right? And so we've been talking about the Tiger Legacy Project. Had a community meeting on March 15th, which was really well attended, and lots of great questions moving forward. So Chad, if you could think through what are some of the talking points that you would hope that our residents come away with from both this presentation as well as the community meeting on the 15th of March?
So I think number one, we're interested in the community feedback. We want this project to be something that the community wants, and that's why we've been spending so much time over the years just getting to understand, and we've made adjustments. Rob is probably tired of us calling him after each meeting, just talking about different adjustments, but that's what makes it fun. We have a lot of fun going through the different scenarios, but number one, that this is a project for the community. It's not for one of us. We want the community to be happy with their facilities, and so that's why we're going through all these listening sessions. Secondly, taking a look at the mechanical systems and understanding that everything has a useful life, and unfortunately for Dodge, I think a lot of those different elements of the 26-point inspection, they've seen the end of their useful life, and so we're at a point where we need to make a decision on whether we renovate or build new. And then the third piece is, because we exceed that 2/3 rule, I think we have an opportunity here to build a better educational climate for our students, and having collaborative learning spaces. That's what today's professional environment is doing, is a lot of group work, a lot of collaboration. And just touring a number of the facilities throughout Ohio and beyond, you see the new buildings have those collaborative learning spaces. They're quieter, they're just more conducive to 21st century learning, and it would be great if Dodge could satisfy some of those things moving forward for our Tigers.
I thank Rob for allowing us to visit some of the schools that Lesco Architecture has helped create over the last few years. And when you walked in those places, we went to Westlake, we went to Vermilion, so impressed with the opportunities for students because of the building, because the building works for the children and it works for the staff. And I so desire that for the students who attend our schools, that they have the kind of learning environment in which they can really aspire to do lots of unique and creative things, and also just have the best opportunity to gain the knowledge they need for the next step in their school career. And so, I thank you for taking me on the tour, but I came back and I thought, geez, I just really want to do something like that for our students, because they deserve it. Our students deserve to have the very best in learning environments, and I think this Tiger Legacy project really will begin to be that very thing for the students. So obviously, we're only talking about Dodge, and obviously, you both have mentioned the fact that facilities assessment would indicate there are other things related to the first phase, not necessarily all focused on Dodge, but for example, we want to make sure that we continue to do warm, safe, and dry in our schools. What does that mean exactly, Chad?
So we definitely want to make sure that our roofing systems are intact, or we've got the HVAC systems, making sure that they're intact, or our security systems. We do a number of security assessments throughout the years, and a continuous thing that comes up during our pros and cons of our security assessments is taking a look at our district-wide radio system, or lack thereof. We have a strong radio system within a building, but district-wide, we really need to, that is a challenge that we need to beef up, in addition to some of our external surveillance. So within the Tiger Legacy project, we're taking a look at a number of other high-priority items that are focused on warm, safe, and dry, whether it's roofing or paving, security cameras, and then the final piece is playgrounds, which when you look at a number of neighboring communities, they have brand new playgrounds. They're ADA accessible. Instead of mulch, they have rubber surfaces. It's just more conducive for all of our students and all of our community. And so those would be some of the different components of that warm, safe, and dry in the Tiger Legacy project.
And so that way it's touching many children beyond the students who would be inside of Dodge, but also the piece with regard to Wilcox and Bissell. And I say that all the time, we want all of our children to be able to get on the playground and have fun. Unfortunately, for some of our children, it's a challenge because mobility issues don't allow them to get wheelchairs up onto curbs, onto mulch-based ground cover, and it's just very difficult. The equipment may not have the their sensory needs fulfilled. So that's an exciting part of this project too, is just to upgrade those playgrounds, of course at Bissell and Wilcox, but then at the new Dodge building as well.
Absolutely.
So I guess the last thing to talk about here a little bit is location for the reconstruction of Dodge. We've talked a lot about the property where Dodge currently sits. Obviously has its challenges, and Dodge itself cannot come down as a school building, a facility, until a new building is built, right? So that building's going to have children in it for several years. Yep. So, Rob, what does it look like as far as timeline, and then what about location? If we were to say, today we're going to start this school, how many years until there are actually children and staff inside of a new building?
It takes about 9 months, to a year to design and do the documents and get the project out for bids, and then about 18 months to build a building. Part of the design is we do a lot of engagement with the staff, so that takes some time, and we want to make sure that everybody that's using the building gets involved in that process. So we purposely take that time so that the engagement happens, and then really about 18 months is the average for construction.
And I would imagine that engagement piece is the most fascinating. taking a blank slate and designing the school that we aspire our students to be able to attend.
Right. It's even though there's some commonalities between schools, obviously, each school that we design is unique for the community. When you engage all the stakeholders, everyone has a little different idea of their needs, and we try to accommodate as much of that as we possibly can. But Twinsburg will have a building that's unique to its community.
Can't wait to get started.
It's what makes it fun to see you hear all about the history of the community too, and what different things that are important to our community members. It's what I think is one of the most fun parts of the engagement process, you know.
Right. So we have about 2 minutes left in our show, Chad, so let's talk about location.
Sure.
Thinking about building a new school, where do we think it might go?
So we've talked a lot about the current location and the concern of being close to a waste water treatment plant, also because you have to be aware of the current location of Dodge and that timing. There's concerns about whether you could actually support a building behind Dodge. So then we looked over at the high school, but there's challenges of egress over there. So that's where we've talked about, okay, well, if we have concerns about that, maybe building it over where the current Tiger Stadium is, and then moving Tiger Stadium to the location of the high school where it could be right in the close proximity to our high school students. So we've looked at a lot of different possibilities of locations. That's where we're currently at, and we're interested in the feedback from the community on that.
Right, and it is a lot to talk about and to think through.
Yeah.
So I guess our point here as we wrap up our show is just to remind our residents that we are really interested in getting as much feedback as we can from them.
Absolutely.
This is not a project that I'm building for me, or you're building for you, or you're building for your company. This is all about the community and making sure that when it's all said and done, the plan that we suggest to the Board of Education this coming late spring has the support from the residents to say, yeah, this is what we would like our community to do with regard to a new elementary school here in the Twinsburg City School District.
Yep.
So it's very exciting times, and really we ask our residents to get engaged, attend one of our community meetings on our website. There's a button under the highlights section of the website. Click on that button. It'll take you to a Tiger Legacy page on the website, and it's there that you can find out all the information that you want about the Tiger Legacy project.
Yep.
Well, it's a lot to talk about. I'm so excited to be a part of this partnership with Lesco Architecture, and of course, Chad, my business manager. We've been on the road for several years, it seems.
Absolutely.
Just trying to engage the community, and we look forward to finalizing the engagement process, making a recommendation to the Board of Education, and then we'll see what the Board of Education would desire to do once we have that information set forth in front of them.
Great.
Well, thanks for being on our show today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, that concludes our Twinsburg City School District Twinsburg Schools Today show for the month of April. We appreciate your interest in our Tiger Legacy project. Please visit our website and look again for the Tiger Legacy button under the highlights section. And once there, you'll be able to find out a lot more information about our Tiger Legacy project, as well as an email address to send questions or inquiries about the project, because we really do want to answer your questions. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope to see you soon at one of our many events in the Twinsburg City School District. Have a great day, everybody.